What determines the value of your home? Its location, its square footage, its garage, or the number of marble tiles in the kitchen? For years, we were told that the real estate market depended on these variables. But across America, the foundation of homeownership is now cracking, not because of debt or inflation, but for a more fundamental reason: water. Once just a footnote in the real estate industry, water has now become a fundamental factor reshaping America's housing market. From the deserts of Arizona to the plains of Texas and the foothills of Colorado, cities everywhere are discovering that their growth rates are consuming the most basic lifeline that sustains them: their water resources. Rivers are shrinking, reservoirs are drying up, and the massive infrastructure built to sustain tens of millions of people has reached a breaking point. The data is alarming. For decades, developers, thinking only of profit and assuming water would be there forever, built massive subdivisions, golf course communities, and luxury mansions. But in 2026, that illusion is evaporating. Lake Mead, the largest reservoir in the U.S., is gasping at record low levels. Groundwater aquifers in Kansas, Utah, and Texas are collapsing due to excessive pumping. You've heard of a housing bubble, but what about a drought bubble? This is a more critical crisis than housing because our world's future depends on it. The terrifying scenario where decades of inflated home values float on a resource that is literally disappearing. When the water vanishes, the neighborhoods vanish too. Property values crash, construction freezes, and investors flee. Contractors can't get permits, insurers raise premiums, and once booming markets are now scorched and deserted. Today, we won't just look at statistics. We'll take you on a journey across the United States. We'll visit 10 cities where the crisis is no longer a distant threat, but a clear and present danger. Most of these cities hide the true severity of the crisis because they fear the panic that would ensue if the public knew the truth: a house run similar to a bank run. If you're ready, let's move on to the video. But first, like the video and subscribe to stay informed about this type of content, and share your thoughts on the topic in the comments. If you haven't yet understood the value of the water flowing from your tap, you will after this video. If you're ready, we're opening up the drought map of America. 10. Miami, Florida. We begin our journey with a paradox. Miami, Florida. You are surrounded by water. On one side is the Atlantic Ocean, on the other is Biscayne Bay. One asks, how can there be a water shortage in a place like this? The threat here is not the absence of water, it is the absence of clean water. Miami's entire freshwater supply, which feeds approximately 3 million people, comes from one place: the Biscayne Aquifer. This is a massive sponge-like porous limestone layer just below the surface that holds rainwater. But as sea levels rise, a relentless mass of salty water from the ocean is pushing inland from below. This is called saltwater intrusion, and it is irreversibly poisoning Miami's only source of drinking water. Data from the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, shows that the saltwater line is advancing inland much faster than models predicted. In some areas, saltwater has penetrated kilometers inland. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is in a race against time. They are spending hundreds of millions of dollars building barriers underground and pumping fresh water into the aquifer to push the saltwater back. But when you fight nature, nature usually wins. According to a report by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, Miami could see a sea level rise of up to 60 centimeters by 2050. This will dramatically accelerate the contamination of groundwater. Researchers at the University of Miami say adapting the infrastructure to this will cost billions of dollars. Now consider the real estate market. How can you maintain those million-dollar beachfront properties when your only source of fresh water is being poisoned by the sea? The real estate bubble in Miami was built on the belief that engineering could escape this environmental reality. But when that belief shatters, financial disaster will follow. When the water coming out of your tap is salty, how much is your ocean view home worth? 0. 9. Atlanta, Georgia. Leaving the coast and heading north, we arrive in Atlanta, Georgia, the capital of the South. Atlanta's problem isn't the ocean, it's its neighbors. The city is caught in one of the longest and most expensive legal battles in American history, the three-state water wars. For decades, Georgia, Alabama, and Florida have been fighting over a single river system, the Apalachicola-Chattahoochee-Flint ACF Basin. Lake Lanier, Atlanta's primary reservoir, is part of this system. And Atlanta, with its exploding population growth, is accused by its neighbors of taking more than its fair share of the pie. During recent droughts, Lake Lanier has receded to historically low and alarming levels. The water has receded so much that old roads, bridges, and town ruins submerged when the lake was created have surfaced like ghosts. This is not just a frightening sight, it is a warning sign of bankruptcy. The Atlanta Regional Commission projects the metro area will add 2.9 million more people by 2050. But the question is, where will the water come from? Florida claims Atlanta's excessive consumption is killing its oyster industry. Alabama says it is stifling its own economic development. The U.S. Supreme Court has had to intervene repeatedly, and legal costs for the parties have already exceeded $100 million. This is not a stable water plan. It's a house of cards. According to a World Wildlife Fund (WWF) study, Atlanta is one of the world's most water-stressed cities. If a future court ruling or a severe enough drought forces Georgia to dramatically reduce its water withdrawals from Lake Lanier, Atlanta's economic engine will stall. What would be the impact on the real estate market? Contractors and developers would be the first to feel the blow. Future bans on new water connections are no longer a distant possibility. You cannot build a house on a plot of land without a water connection. Can Atlanta continue to grow, or will this shining star of the South fade when its neighbors turn off the tap? 8. Cape Coral, Florida. Leaving Miami, we cross Florida from end to end and head to the west coast, to Cape Coral. It's hard to decide whether this place is an engineering marvel or an environmental disaster. It's the city with the most waterways in the world. It has 640 kilometers of canals, more than Venice. It was marketed as the sailor's dream. Every backyard has a boat dock. Every window offers a water view. According to Zillow data, the median home price is around $400,000, so living by the water still seems affordable. But lurking beneath this dream is an invisible and insidious enemy. Salt. Cape Coral's drinking water doesn't come from canals. It's pumped from a shallow aquifer, underground water layer, beneath the ground. But the city grew so fast and pumped so much water that it created a massive vacuum effect underground. Do you know what that vacuum drew in? The dense, salty seawater from the Gulf of Mexico. What is happening in Cape Coral right now is a slow-motion disaster. Saltwater is seeping into the city's freshwater reserves and contaminating the drinking water. That canal home you bought for the view is now sitting on a geographic trap that makes the water coming out of your tap undrinkable. What is the city's only solution to this problem? Building massive reverse osmosis plants. These plants are energy-guzzling beasts that filter water under high pressure to remove salt. So who pays the bill for this electricity and technology? You do, of course. Cape Coral residents are already facing rapidly rising water bills and special assessment taxes. The monthly operating cost of that affordable home you bought for $400,000 is now rivaling that of a mansion. The price of living by the water is no longer just the mortgage. It's the fortune you pay to make that water drinkable. Cape Coral is the most salty proof of how nature punishes urban planning that defies it. 7. Austin, Texas. Now we turn our attention westward to Austin, Texas, America's new technology and migration hub. Tesla, Oracle, Google, they've all moved here. Austin has been dubbed the new Silicon Valley. The Colorado River, the Colorado in Texas, don't confuse it, running through the middle of the city, and the lakes it creates are the lifeblood of this city. But these lakes, which look blue and bountiful from the outside, are actually reservoirs. And right now, those reservoirs are on the verge of collapse. According to data from the LCRA, Lower Colorado River Authority, which manages the lakes, the water levels of Lake Travis and Lake Buchanan have fallen below 35%. This is not just a statistic. It means that the million-dollar homes on the lakefront are now canyon view homes. Look at the photos. Those luxury boat docks that once floated on the water are now stranded on dry rocks, hundreds of meters from the water's edge. Buyers who paid millions for the lake view now look out onto a dusty pit. And the heat? Austin broke records last summer with temperatures above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 degrees Celsius, for over 45 days. These extreme temperatures evaporated the lake water like a hairdryer, while also causing a surge in water demand from homeowners trying to keep their lawns green. City officials implemented Stage 2 drought restrictions. Now, watering gardens is limited to 1 day a week. But this is a drop in the ocean. The real problem is the mismatch between growth and resources. A Texas A&M University report issues a stark warning. If a major drought like the one in the 1950s returns, Austin's water supply could fall below critical levels within the next 10 years. Investing in America's fastest-growing metropolis, a city with reservoirs half empty. This is why Austin's real estate bubble has turned into a drought bubble. Lakefront property values have already started to take a hit. Tech giants may come here, but they can't bring the water. 6. San Antonio, Texas, heading south from Austin to its neighbor, San Antonio. This city faces a completely different water problem than Austin because here the problem is invisible. San Antonio doesn't get its water from rivers or lakes. Over 90% of this city's water comes from beneath your feet, from deep underground. The Edwards Aquifer. This is a massive water reservoir, like an underground river trapped within porous limestone. For years, this aquifer was seen as a miracle. The country's cleanest, most reliable water was practically free. But San Antonio's exploding population has turned this miracle into a nightmare. The city is drawing water much faster than the aquifer can replenish itself. And worse, the growth itself is destroying the water source. Developers are building thousands of new homes right on top of the aquifer's recharge zone. Every pour of concrete, every paved road prevents rainwater from seeping into the ground and replenishing the aquifer. We're talking about a city covering its own lifeline with concrete. The result? The Edwards Aquifer Authority's EAA emergency plans are in effect. Stage 4 restrictions are being enforced in the city. This means severely limiting not just lawns, but all non-essential water use. U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, data confirms that the groundwater level is in a dangerous downward trend. This decline threatens not only the taps, but also the ecosystem. Natural resources that fuel tourism, such as the Comal and San Marcos rivers, are at risk of drying up. City officials are desperately seeking alternatives. They spent billions of dollars on the Vista Ridge pipeline to bring water from 240 kilometers away. But this new water is very expensive. And this cost is directly reflected in homeowners' water bills. Buying a home in San Antonio is now like investing in an invisible underground stock market. The value of your home is indexed to the water level in that unseen aquifer, and that level is dropping every day. San Antonio, which is paving the way for a long-term disaster in pursuit of short-term profits, is the perfect embodiment of the phrase, digging your own grave. Buying a home in San Antonio is now like investing in an invisible underground stock market. The value of your home is tied to the water level in that unseen aquifer, and that level is dropping every day. San Antonio, which is paving the way for a long-term disaster in pursuit of short-term profits, is the perfect embodiment of the saying, digging your own grave. 5. Salt Lake City, Utah. As we reach number 5, right in the middle of our list, the nature of the crisis changes. So far, we've talked about drought. But in Salt Lake City, the problem isn't just that the water is running out, it's the toxic legacy left behind as the water recedes. Salt Lake City owes its existence to the lake that gave it its name. However, the Great Salt Lake is on the verge of becoming one of the greatest environmental disasters in modern history. According to data from the U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, the lake has lost more than 70% of its volume. This is not only due to drought, it is also because the Bear, Weber, and Jordan rivers, which feed the lake, have been diverted for agriculture and the city's booming population. As the lake shrinks, it is not just mud that emerges. What is emerging is a toxic bed filled with arsenic, mercury, and lead where industrial waste has accumulated for decades. When the wind blows, dust laden with these heavy metals becomes airborne and rains directly onto the city, onto those million-dollar homes, parks, and schools. The Utah Department of Environmental Quality has repeatedly warned that this dust can cause serious respiratory illnesses, cancer, and neurological disorders. According to Zillow data, the median home price here is still around $550,000, and the city looks spotless from the outside. But buying a home here is like playing Russian roulette. The lake's drying up creates a two-pronged disaster. First, toxic air. How can the real estate market survive in a city where you can't breathe the air? Second, the loss of the lake effect. This lake was the main source of snowfall for the surrounding mountains. If the lake dries up, there will be no snow. If there is no snow, ski tourism will end, and more importantly, drinking water sources will dry up. Right now, in Salt Lake City, those houses marketed as having magnificent mountain views are actually on the front lines of an impending ecological collapse. The state government is in a panic. They have allocated $1 billion in emergency funds to pump water into the lake. But most experts whisper that this is too little, too late. Salt Lake City stands at that critical point where the bargain with nature has been lost. 4. Los Angeles, California. And now we come to America's dream factory, Los Angeles. This is the capital of illusion. In the middle of the desert, a lush oasis where 12 million people live, each with a pool in their backyard. But this oasis is built entirely on debt. Not financial debt, but water debt. Los Angeles is a city that defies the laws of nature. It has almost no water of its own. According to city data, Los Angeles imports about 85% of its water from outside sources. This water comes from two main sources hundreds of miles away: the State Water Project in Northern California and the Colorado River. But in 2025, both of these sources are set to dry up. The State Water Project, which depends on the Sierra Nevada snowpack, has reduced the amount of water allocated to the city to as little as 5% in some years due to declining snowfall. On the other hand, the Colorado River. It is also struggling. The federal government has reduced the water share of the Metropolitan Water District, MWD, the main wholesaler supplying Los Angeles, by hundreds of thousands of acre-feet. The result? For the first time in history, a water emergency was declared, and 6 million people faced restrictions on outdoor water use for 1 day a week. In this city, where the median home price is approaching $1 million according to Zillow data, the value of your home is based on a single assumption: the water will always flow. But that assumption is no longer valid. The Los Angeles housing market is a $1 trillion gamble, 85% of which is tied to a broken system. The city is spending billions to recycle wastewater and collect rainwater. But until these projects are completed, Los Angeles' water security hangs by a thread. Property taxes are doubling for the first time in 30 years to finance water infrastructure. Water bills will increase by 8.5% annually in 2025 and 2026. The cost of living here isn't just the price of the house, it's the sun tax you'll pay to make that house livable. Even Hollywood scripts couldn't be this terrifying. 3. San Diego, California. If Los Angeles is on life support, San Diego is on life support. We've reached the end of the road, the southernmost tip of California. This is one of America's most expensive, most desirable real estate markets, but it's also geographically the most unfortunate. San Diego imports nearly 90% of its water from outside sources. It has almost no local water supply, and the main source it relies on is the country's most controversial, fastest-drying river, the Colorado River. Moreover, San Diego ranks near the bottom in terms of seniority for water rights on this river. So, in the event of a shortage, they'll be the first to have their water cut off. Seeing this deadly vulnerability, the city administration took a huge gamble and spent over $1 billion to build the Claude Bud Lewis desalination plant. This technology, which turns ocean water into drinking water, was marketed as a miracle and insurance against drought. But technology isn't free. Desalination is an incredibly energy-intensive and expensive process. The cost of this drought-proof water is nearly double that of imported regular water. So who pays the difference? Homeowners, of course. This cost was directly reflected in water bills, and San Diego residents now pay one of the highest water bills in the country. Already at record levels, housing prices are now compounded by water bills as high as mortgage payments. And the harsh reality is this billion-dollar facility can only meet 10% of the region's water needs. For the remaining 90%, they are still dependent on their drying rivers and melting snow. San Diego has mortgaged its future on a 10% insurance policy. But the fire has engulfed 100%. Buying a home here is not just about paying a high price, it means subscribing to an unsustainable system. 2. Las Vegas, Nevada. Now we go to the poster child of the American mega drought, Las Vegas, Nevada. This is not a mirage in the desert, it is a crime scene against the laws of nature. Over 90% of the city's water comes from one place, Lake Mead, and that lake is drying up at a catastrophic rate. Look at the canyon walls. That white bathtub ring is proof of how much the water has receded over the past 20 years. The ring is now over 30 meters, 100 feet high. According to data from the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, the lake's capacity has fallen to 28% or below. The situation is so dire that the city's original intake valve, built in the 1970s, is now exposed on a dry hilltop, useless above the water. Las Vegas has been forced to drill into the bottom of the lake to survive. The Southern Nevada Water Authority spent $1.5 billion to build a deeper intake, dubbed the third straw, to draw the last remaining drops of water, the muddy water at the bottom of the lake. This is not an engineering triumph, it is a cry of desperation. City officials patrol with water cops, ban decorative grass, and pay people to remove their lawns. Yes, Las Vegas is one of the world's best at recycling water, but as one climate scientist put it, hope is not a water management strategy. The federal government declared a Tier 3 drought level for the entire lower Colorado River basin and drastically cut Nevada's water share. The city's entire economy, those billion-dollar casinos, fountains, 40 million tourists, and booming housing market is built on a rapidly draining puddle. The only thing protecting the real estate market from collapse is the belief that maybe next year it will rain. But in Las Vegas, the house always wins. And this time, the house is Mother Nature. The city is just one bad drought year away from a full-blown catastrophe. 1. Phoenix, Arizona, and the peak. Number 1. This is where speculation ended and collapse became official. Phoenix, Arizona. For years, Phoenix was known as the growth machine. Come to the desert, buy a house cheap, enjoy the sun, they said. As builders constructed massive suburbs, Buckeye, Queen Creek, they relied on one thing. If the river water runs out, we'll tap into the groundwater. But in 2023, the Arizona Department of Water Resources, ADWR, dropped an atomic bomb on the real estate market. After a comprehensive 10-year groundwater modeling study, they announced this historic decision. The groundwater beneath the Phoenix metropolitan area is insufficient to support approved new housing projects. You heard that right. The state officially said, "We won't have enough water." And for the first time in modern American history, a state government halted new residential construction in a major metropolitan area due to water scarcity. This is a moratorium. This means growth is legally canceled. According to a report by the Kyle Water Policy Center at Arizona State University, over 80,000 approved housing projects are now at risk because of this decision. Billions of dollars in future development plans vanished overnight. Consider this. Buckeye, Phoenix's fastest-growing suburb, was projected to reach a population of 1 million. But the state pulled the plug, stating, "There isn't enough water to sustain that many people there." This situation creates two dire scenarios for current homeowners. First, the value of your home is tied to the growth potential of its surroundings. If your neighborhood can no longer grow, it becomes a dead investment. Second, and more frightening, if there is no water for new homes, how long will your well last? Major construction companies like Lennar and D.R. Horton have already begun warning shareholders that water restrictions could hinder growth. Phoenix is the canary in the coal mine. It is the first warning sign of the impending disaster. This is the first place where the reality that no water, no homes has become law, and this law will soon apply throughout the western United States. This is the picture, from the ocean poisoning Miami's underground, to the toxic dust rising from the bottom of the lake in Salt Lake City, to the desperation of digging up the bottom of the lake in Las Vegas. And finally, to the official ban on construction in Phoenix. What we are seeing is not simply drought. It is a catastrophe. The trillion-dollar real estate market, inflated for decades on the assumption of unlimited water, is now colliding with physical reality, with nature. And you can never win a war against nature. The value of homes in these cities is no longer just location, location. It's water, water, water. A home with no running water is worth nothing. A city with poisoned air has no future. This list is not an apocalyptic scenario. It's the reality unfolding right now. The construction ban in Phoenix is not an exception. It's the beginning. If you are considering buying a home in these areas or already own one, the question you need to ask yourself is, when my 30-year mortgage is paid off, will there still be drinkable water in this city? Do you think technology can save us, or will we be forced to migrate? Which city situation scares you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments. To keep discussing the facts based solely on data, don't forget to like this video, share it with your loved ones, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next crisis report. Water is precious, but stay alert.